Get ready. It's time for the Idaho Podcast with your host, Danny Ventura. Welcome to the Idaho Podcast, where we feature the people who live, work, and play in Idaho. Today, my special guest is Kim Demma from Guild Mortgage, and we're just so happy to have you today. Kim, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Kim, you've been here for almost 30 years, you and your husband. You have 6 kids among you and 12 grandkids. Pretty impressive. And what a blessing at the same time.
It is.
You mentioned that all but one of them live in Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool, too, that you're all close together. Did they all join you when you moved here, or were some here already?
Well, I moved here from Germany with my 2 kids.
Okay.
And then my husband was living in Idaho Falls, and all of his kids were there with him. So, yeah, we all were here all the time together.
Wow. So everybody must love Idaho.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's terrific. So you moved here to Boise with your family in 1993, I believe, and have been here since. But what originally brought you to Idaho? And now that you've been here over 30 years, what about Idaho keeps you here?
Well, what brought us here was I was living in Germany with my then husband, and he retired from the military. My parents lived in Northwest Washington, and they were getting ready to move. And I'm like, well, I don't really have any ties anywhere. And his mother had moved here. So we're like, okay, why not? So we just went for it. It was a little scary because I'd never been here. But what keeps me here is, well, there's a number of things. One, it's beautiful. I think the biggest thing is having grown up in the military, I never had my own hometown. I never really lived anywhere any length of time other than like 4 years. And I will never forget I'd probably lived here for about 3 or 4 years. I was walking through the grocery store and I ran into someone that I knew and I started crying because it was like, I have a hometown.
Oh.
And I think that to me was the biggest thing about living in Idaho is it's home.
Mm-hmm. So many people say that, and I don't know how we convey that to our listeners, especially for those who don't live here, because people say, well, yeah, of course it feels like home. That's where you live. But it's a deep, resonant, it really is inside of you. It's a feeling that it's hard to explain. Would you think you'd be able to try?
It is. You're right. Because I've lived so many places. I've lived Hawaii, Germany, Nebraska, Washington, Arkansas. I've lived everywhere, but I never felt a connection with a place like I did here. They have that Idaho, that Boise Kind movement. I don't know if you've seen that. But it's a movement where you're just being kind. And the fact that there's a city that is so focused on kindness I think that's what really does it. That's what makes it feel really homey.
Right. And people are genuinely welcoming and friendly and just kind. You're right. Kindness is the right word. And, and I appreciate that. You did a great job, better job than I could do, for sure. That's awesome.
30 years it took me.
You served in the U.S. Air Force for 9 years, and thank you for your service, by the way.
Thank you.
And which also you mentioned you had been stationed in Hawaii and Nebraska and even in Germany. What contributed to your decision in joining the Air Force?
Well, my dad was in, and he served 22 years. My oldest brother was in. My next older brother was in. And I was in Ferndale, Washington. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I was graduating high school, and it just kind of seemed like the natural progression in our lives, in our family. So I just went for it. I was 17, and I went, I'm out of here. Wow.
And so tell me a little bit more about your military services as far as you went in, when you came out, were you an officer, that type of thing? What area of service were you?
I was an airman. So my first 4 years, I worked as what was called a reprographics technician. We ran printing presses and copiers and things like this. I got really tired of ink under my nails, so I decided to cross-train. And I went into, it's the term is chapel management. So literally we were the church secretaries of the military, kind of keeping chaplains on track. So I did that for 5 years, and it's a strictly volunteer thing because of the religious implications. So it's all volunteer. but I really loved it. Well, that was when I was in Nebraska. And then I went to Germany after that, and we were at a tiny, tiny air station. It was very, very close. I think there were like 400 people on our base. And during the first Desert Storm, we had to carry our own guns and patrol our perimeter in the middle of the winter. And it just, to me, it felt like, again, it kind of felt like home. It felt like that was where I belonged. And the one thing that I always thought is, when I was in the Air Force, it didn't matter if I was male or female. It just mattered what I did and how well I did on my tests. So I could go as far as I wanted to. And I didn't feel like there was any sexism or anything holding me back. So I loved it. Loved every minute of it.
Kind of at your own pace.
Yep.
Yeah. And 9 years, I think, again, that's impressive. So
yeah, I outranked my husband. My current husband was in for 4 years, and I tell him all the time, I outranked you.
There you go. So then you started in the mortgage industry in 1997 as a junior loan processor, but then you've been with Guild Mortgage since 2008.
Yeah.
And so you endured, so you've been with Guild since 2008. And of course, that's the year everyone remembers because it was the year that everything imploded in the mortgage arena.
Yeah.
There's movies about it now, right? So The Big Short.
That was exactly the one when you said that. I watched The Big Short, and I used to work at Countrywide prior to Guild. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was us. And that's really what it was like. I mean, it was literally just like that.
Right. And for those of us who lived through it, even as a homeowner, I mean, it was scary times. Banks calling loans for no reason, even if you hadn't missed a payment, they were because they were all upside down. And so many banks went out of business, mortgage companies. And at any rate, some would argue that was probably the most tumultuous time in the mortgage industry, at least on record, historically. Do you feel like through that experience that has really helped you refine your career in mortgage, and how has it helped mold you?
So I give that a lot of thought because it was super stressful. I mean, I lost a home. Actually, I lost 2 homes. My income literally disappeared. It was super stressful. But there's 2 things it taught me. One was, if you choose to, you can survive anything. And you just keep going, put one foot in front of the other. You keep moving on, keep moving on. The other thing that it taught me is that people are not defined by their credit score or by the things that have happened to them in the past or whatever. They have absolute value for who they are in their hearts. Because I would get people calling me and they just would be sobbing on the phone going, I just feel so guilty. I feel so worthless. I feel so bad. And I'm just like, don't let it define you. You're a good person who had a rough time. And we all did. I mean, it was really rough.
Right. I love that outlook that you take. I can't say either way, but I didn't experience that level of care or empathy from our mortgage company or people that I spoke to who were having greater difficulties during that time. And I love that it comes from a heart of empathy. And it almost comes across as you're in this industry almost as a ministry, and it feels that way.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Because there's a sincere care. And, part of that is I was very struck by your website when I went on it, and you share a philosophy that of love, serve, care. And if you would, I would love to share that with the listeners as well. And it says the love portion is, we take care of each other, our clients, and our partners. We forgive easily, and above all else, we remember to give and ask for grace. We are humble and we accept responsibility. We are kind, respectful, and patient. Then serve. We are in the service of our clients and partners. We do what is in the best interest of our teammates, the client, and our referral partners. We know that all answers become clear when we are in a servant mindset. And then care. We are an integral part of the growth and development of our realtor partners' business. We are an integral part of our clients' financial future, and we find the best financing for them regardless of any outcome to us. And I would say that is extremely unique in the industry. And I was super, super impressed by that. To see such genuine and what I see as selfless a selfless statement like that on a website that says, this is what we're all about. We care about you. And again, you've pointed to it, and probably not even unwittingly, just because that's who you are. But how did you come to that philosophy of love, serve, care? And why is it so important to you in your business?
Well, part of it is, so my daughter works with me, and it's a way for us to really grow together as a family.
Mm-hmm.
And the example that I set for her, I mean, she's 37, but I'm able to set an example for her, and I want her to see what she can bring to the world. Um, you know, they say that buying a home is the biggest purchase of your life, and there's so much emotion attached to it. And people are scared, or they're excited, or they're a combination of the two. And when you just can take the time to hear them, hear what's important to them, and just embrace who they are and help them on this journey,
Mm-hmm.
that's just what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I appreciate you saying that. What recommendations or advice would you give to folks right now? Because I mean, we're still in interest rates that were much higher than they were 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so some folks are still considering potentially refinancing. I mean, and again, I'm not asking you to give financial legal advice, but if you pulled out your crystal ball, what kind of advice would you give to folks who may be considering financing right now? Or
Okay, it's really interesting that you said that, because on my way here, I had a past client call me and ask me about
is
refinancing.
that
You know, and what I told her and what I told another lady, because we're actually doing a refinance for someone right now, is that the interest rate you have on your home is great. But if I can put you into what unfortunately is a little bit higher interest rate on your home and pay off so much debt that you're saving $800-900 a month, then it's worth it. You have to, rates aren't, you're not writing a check for rates, and you're not writing, the rate really isn't what it's all about. It's what you can do with that financial equity that you have in your home. I think that you have to look at what fits your family the best. If refinancing works for you because you're going to save a boatload of money every month and you're going to have peace, then go for it. And don't worry about the rate. I mean, granted, you could always refinance later if things go down even more, but you have to look at now what is going to serve you and your family the most and the best.
Okay, got it. And then what about folks, especially the younger folks who are looking to maybe purchase their first home?
Mm-hmm.
In this, and again, in this, economy and the inflation and everything else that we're experiencing right now, what would be your advice to them as they prepare to get ready to have to apply for a loan? And what are the things that they need to work on now so that maybe 6 to 12 months from now, they will actually be ready to get pre-approved for a loan?
That is my favorite question. Debt. Get rid of your debt. I had a conversation with a client and I said, here's what it comes down to. You either can have debt or you can have a home, but you can't have both. You have to get that debt out of the way. If you look at let's say a $400 car payment, that's about $60,000-70,000 worth of house. So if you're like, I can't live in a $300,000 house, well, pay off your car. Right now, you've bumped it up to $370,000, and now it's easier to find something. So that is the number one thing. Obviously, make sure your credit is clean, but get rid of debt. And you know what is so interesting is that I tell people you have to look at bettering your life in any way you can. And I have found that single women, if you tell them, hey, Susie, whatever, if you can make $5 more an hour, you can afford a house at like $370 or whatever. They will find a way to make $5 more an hour, whether it's a new job, asking for a raise, whatever it is. Single men, on the other hand, they don't really do that as readily as the single women.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Huh. And what would you say that's great advice, by the way. What would you say are some of the greatest challenges in the last 6 months, and even looking forward 6 months, for people, even qualified people, getting qualified today? Yeah. What are you seeing as some of the greater challenges?
Unfortunately, the one negative about Boise or this area is that income has not kept up with the housing prices. So that is definitely the biggest challenge. And It's really difficult because Idaho has a lot of single income families. So it is kind of hard to qualify as a single income. Although I did calculate and I had 16% of my business last year was single women, which is why I made that comment.
Okay.
But I think that's the biggest challenge is that and the lack of inventory.
Okay. Yeah, that's real.
Yeah, we're at like 1 to 2 months, I think, and we should be at 6 or more. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. And so, and again, going back to this industry, you've been in it for a long time. What are some of the things that you see on the horizon that might be beneficial to folks looking either to refinance or purchase a new home?
Well, we've been hearing forever and ever and ever, and I really believe that at some point, I'm thinking like Q3-ish this year, interest rates are most likely going to go down.
Mm-hmm.
We are anticipating maybe low to mid fives this year in 2024. Maybe in 2025, we might see them, in the fours somewhere. But it's going to happen. I mean, right now, if we can get through this whole inflationary thing, we're going to start seeing things settle down. And in about the last month or so, we've seen interest rates drop about 0.75%. So things are getting better.
That's good news. Hopefully that is right, and it's on the horizon.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. With the folks that are having challenges, whether they're new home buyers or people looking to refinance, when they experience challenges and you're there to help, again, more than just process alone, right? Mm-hmm. How does that philosophy of love, serve, and care come into play when you have clients hit those challenges?
The number one thing is to reassure them that, again, that it doesn't define them, that things are going to be okay. And I think when you take away that shame, for lack of a better term, people can start seeing things more clearly, and then you can kind of help them through. So if you were to, do this, and to be totally honest, this was like after 2008, but I have told a client once, you cannot afford these debts, and it's okay. Your income is lower. If you've got to file bankruptcy, do it. You look at every individual and try to help them to just work through a solution. And then you just keep, I know it sounds very cliche, but you just keep loving on them. If you can let people know that it's okay to go through problems, let me help you, let me talk you through it. I've seen, thousands of credit reports. I've seen people come out of a really bad situation and life ends up better. I'm there. I'm one, hey, I've been where you are. I can empathize and I can help you get through it.
And empathize from experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, you had mentioned a little earlier, you said you're contrary to belief, you're not defined by your credit score. But I would say we live in a world that you almost are defined by your, we're trying to portray that, at least, project that. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of pressure, especially on the younger generations, because credit scores are such a big part. They're real. They're a big part of getting credit approved and so forth. And it's why we shouldn't be defined by it, because we are who we are inside. And I agree with that statement, but it is a real thing. So do you ever recommend folks to use credit counseling or any type of credit service that helps them repair credit?
I do. So we have a few resources for that, but to be honest, a lot of it, I can tell people what to do. I can say, okay, so you need to call these creditors and dispute. You can do it yourself. Or the big thing that I see is pay credit card balances down to below 50% and down to 30% of the limit if you can. So I can walk people through that without spending money on credit counseling or whatever. I've seen enough of it. I've seen them get fixed. I've seen an 80-point increase in score by just paying down some credit cards. And then sometimes you just say, hey, wait, but I can give you a defined time frame. You're going to have 12 months and then we're going to look again. It's not a forever. And, we know, being, mature adults, we know that time flies like really fast.
Absolutely. It goes by faster and faster every year.
I know.
For sure. Well, and that's really awesome that you're able to help your clients that way. And I think that's why you're so successful and have such a long list of clients and so many people recommend you. That's a tribute to your service that you provide, for sure. In addition to all the things we mentioned that you do, you also offer one-to-one coaching, not only on your own, but you also offer it through Guild Mortgage, through the Elevate coaching program. What drives you to give back in that way?
Oh my gosh. So Guild has come out with this thing, like you said, Elevate, where we coach loan officers from all around the country that are not like in our market. I love when people say, you changed my life. And then I tell them, no, I just set you on a path. You changed your life. And I love that. I love when people just get to a better place. And so it just brings me so much joy. And then with realtors, I do some one-on-one coaching because I found that a lot of them go into the industry thinking that all you have to do is just like look at houses and sell houses and it's going to be all great and good. But they don't really realize how much work is involved in it and how much it's a relationship business. And then just helping them change that mindset is just beautiful. I love watching it.
Can you share some of the tools you use? I mean, for example, how do you get someone to the point where they tell you, you've changed my life? That's pretty incredible.
Actually, I'm very, well, and you kind of said it, I'm very empathic.
Okay.
The number one thing is listening. I love listening to people, and I will pick up things that they're not even aware of. For example, I have a student who, he loves cold calling. And I thought, okay, that's kind of weird, but okay, he likes to cold call. And I just was listening and I'm like, so what do you like about it? And just by listening, I said, is it perhaps that you feel more comfortable being rejected by someone you don't know versus someone you know? And he about started crying. And he just said, that's exactly it. And we started working on that. And actually, his coaching assignment was to go out on a date with his wife and another couple and go a little deeper with them. Be authentic and actually ask the questions, hear the answers, and just because he really struggled with creating relationships.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's those kinds of things. And yeah, it's just amazing.
That's so cool. You radiate when you talk about it. So that's
love
true. Are the coaching services, would you consider them affordable, or is that the right term? Or are they?
So the ones through Guild, people pay, they pay Guild for it. But yeah, mine are pretty affordable considering they're free.
Okay. free 99 is always my favorite price.
Free 99.
That's great. Well, that's really nice that you do that. That's that you offer those services.
Well, you know, in this economy, with as much as agents and so forth, realtors are struggling, they don't need another thing to pay for. So if I can give a gift and help them improve their lives and support their families better, then I've served my purpose.
Right. Wow. And that is a good big calling to help people transform people's lives to the point where they tell you, you changed my life. That's big. That's really big. I know your website is Kim-Demma, and that's DEMMA.com.
Mm-hmm.
But how else can our listeners reach you if they wanted to reach out to you, whether it was mortgage or refinancing or even coaching
or life?
So
my cell number is 208-447-8554.
Okay, slow that down one more time.
Okay, 208-447-8554.
Perfect.
So I can be reached that way, call or text. Through the website, you can email me through the website. My email address is kdemma@guildmortgage.net.
Okay.
So it's .net, not .com. So that's another way to reach me. Those are probably the best ways.
That's outstanding. Well, Kim-Demma at Guild Mortgage, I love that you shared love, serve, and care with us. That's what a great philosophy, and I appreciate having you today. And I appreciate all your service in the Air Force, and appreciate what you do for other people. That's just huge.
Well, thank you so much. I know when you said service, I thought, oh, there's where the serve part came from.
There you go, right? Pretty natural. Well, thanks for joining us today, Kim.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us on the Idaho Podcast. We hope to see you again next time. This is Danny Ventura saying, have a great week. Take care.